What's up, everybody? Picture Europe in 1914. Empires at the top of the world, certain that progress only goes up. Within 30 years, two world wars flatten the continent, wipe out tens of millions, and end Europe's grip on the globe. This is AP European History Unit 8, 20th Century Global Conflicts, 1914 to the present. Here's your map. World War I and Total War, the Russian Revolution, the Treaty of Versailles, the interwar collapse and the rise of fascism, Stalin's USSR, then World War II, and the Holocaust. The big theme tying it together? Industrial power turned on itself. Stick with me to the end, and I'll show you the fastest way to lock this all in before exam day. Let's get into it. Start with why the whole thing blew up, because the College Board wants the long-term causes, not just the spark. Memorize one word. Main. M is militarism, an arms race where glorifying the military made war feel inevitable. A is alliances, two rival blocs, the Triple Alliance and Triple Entente that turned a local fight into a continental one. I is imperialism, great powers clashing over colonies. N is nationalism, especially in the Balkans, the powder keg of Europe. Then the spark. In 1914, a Serbian nationalist assassinates Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria-Hungary in Sarajevo, the alliances chain react, and Europe marches to war. Now here's the concept the exam loves. Total war. This wasn't soldiers in a field, it was entire societies mobilized. On the Western Front, trench warfare created a brutal stalemate, machine guns, poison gas, and barbed wire turning battles like the Somme and Verdun into slaughter for a few yards of mud. Back home, the home front mattered just as much. Governments took over economies, rationed food, and used propaganda to keep morale up. Women entered factories in huge numbers, work that fueled the post-war push for suffrage. War now meant the whole nation, lock that in. While the war grinds on, Russia cracks. The war exposed everything wrong with Tsar Nicholas II. Military disaster, mass starvation, and incompetent autocracy. In 1917, it breaks twice. First, the March Revolution forces the Tsar to abdicate, ending centuries of Romanov rule. Then in November, Lenin and the Bolsheviks seize power with the promise of peace, land, and bread. Russia pulls out of World War I and falls into civil war, and the Bolsheviks win, creating the world's first communist state, the Soviet Union. A new kind of government is born out of total war, that's the takeaway. War ends in 1918, and the peace plants the seeds of the next one. In 1919, the victors meet at Versailles. The key term is the War Guilt Clause, Article 231, which forces Germany to accept full blame for the war. From that flows the rest. Crushing reparations payments, drastic loss of territory and colonies, and a gutted military. Germany was humiliated and economically wrecked, fueling deep resentment. Empires collapsed, new nations were carved out of Eastern Europe, and the League of Nations was created to keep peace, but with no real power and no United States, it was weak from day one. A harsh peace, a fragile future. Now the interwar years, and everything fragile gets shattered. The 1920s brought brief recovery. Then, in 1929, the global economy collapses into the Great Depression. Trade dried up, banks failed, and unemployment exploded across Europe. Here's why it matters for the exam. Economic desperation killed faith in democracy. When moderate governments couldn't fix the crisis, frightened, jobless people started looking for someone, anyone, promising order, jobs, and national pride. That opening is exactly what extremists walk through. Hold that link. The Depression is the bridge to fascism. Enter fascism, and you need to know what it actually means. Extreme nationalism, a single dictator, total state control, and the rejection of democracy. First in Italy. Amid post-war chaos, Benito Mussolini and his fascist party take power in 1922, promising to restore Roman glory. Then the bigger one. In Germany, Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party exploit Depression-era despair and rage at the Treaty of Versailles. Hitler becomes chancellor in 1933, and quickly turns Germany into a totalitarian dictatorship built on extreme nationalism, militarism, and vicious anti-Semitism. Two strongmen, same recipe. Crisis plus resentment equals dictatorship. Don't forget the other totalitarian giant, on the left this time. In the Soviet Union, Joseph Stalin builds a brutal dictatorship. To industrialize fast, he launches the 5-year plans, state-directed crash programs that turned the USSR into an industrial power at enormous human cost. He forces collectivization, seizing peasant farms into state control, which triggered famines that killed millions, especially in Ukraine. and he holds power through terror. The Great Purge, where show trials, executions, and the Gulag labor camps eliminated anyone seen as a threat. Total state control through fear. Lock that in alongside the fascists. Quick power up, because the exam will make you compare these regimes. All three are totalitarian. One party, one leader, total control, propaganda, secret police, no dissent. But the ideology differs. Italian fascism and German Nazism are far right, built on extreme nationalism and, for the Nazis, racial anti-Semitism. Soviet communism is far left, built on class and state ownership of the economy. Different goals, scary similar methods, terror, censorship, and a cult of the leader. If a prompt asks how these states are alike and different, that's your answer. Opposite ideologies, parallel tools of control. All that resentment and aggression explodes again. Hitler tears up Versailles, rearms, and expands, while Britain and France try appeasement, giving in to keep peace, which only emboldens him. In 1939, Germany invades Poland and World War II begins. The German strategy is blitzkrieg, lightning war, fast tanks and planes that overrun much of Europe. It becomes total war on an even larger scale. Civilians bombed, whole economies mobilized. The tide turns when the USSR and the United States join the Allies, grinding Germany down from east and west until 1945. Bigger, deadlier, more total than the First War. Now the darkest core of this unit, and you must be precise. The Holocaust was the systematic, state-sponsored genocide of 6 million Jews by Nazi Germany, carried out in concentration and death camps as part of what the Nazis called the final solution. Millions of others, Roma, disabled people, Slavs, and political prisoners, were murdered too. This is the horrifying endpoint of fascism's racism, fused with the industrial machinery of total war. And the war's other turning point. In 1945, the United States drops atomic bombs on Japan, ending the war and opening the nuclear age. Genocide and the atomic bomb, the war redefines human destruction. Zoom out to 1945 and the wreckage, because this is where Europe's old world ends. The continent lies in ruins, tens of millions dead, cities flattened, and the moral catastrophe of the Holocaust hanging over it all. Europe is no longer the center of global power. That mantle passes to two new superpowers, the United States and the Soviet Union. And here's the setup for everything next. Europe splits in two, a democratic, capitalist West and a communist East under Soviet control, an iron curtain dividing the continent and igniting the Cold War. The conflicts of this unit didn't end the story, they reshaped the entire world. And that's AP Euro Unit 8, 20th Century Global Conflicts. The main causes of World War I and Total War, the Russian Revolution and Lenin's Bolsheviks, the harsh Treaty of Versailles, the depression feeding fascism under Mussolini and Hitler, Stalin's terror, then World War II, the Holocaust, the atomic bomb, and a Europe divided. You just covered the whole thing. But here's the truth. Watching is not the same as knowing. Head to AIM5 and practice Unit 8 for free, with instant feedback on every question. Links below. Now go get that 5, and I'll see you in the next review.